Hello, I'm Matt Drangler. I'm the head of partnerships here at Podscribe, and I'm here to show you the reporting, attribution, and incrementality interface that exists on podscribe.com. The goal of attribution and incrementality with Podscribe is to show advertisers, agencies, and publishers how their podcast media is performing in terms of driving things like site visitation, site conversions, app downloads, and other further engagement on the app. And we'll show you exactly how to start looking at this data now. So first and foremost, let's take a look at this campaign. So this is a campaign with Amazing Brand 123. It is a demo account that has just kind of fake numbers that are in here, but it does help to start showcasing how this data can be leveraged to inform why a campaign is working or not working, and to also help inform what you should be doing next, whether that means optimizing the current campaign or creating new strategies with insights from this dashboard for the next campaign. So let's talk about that a little bit. So first of all, we'll look at left to right, top to bottom on this screen. So again, this is with Amazing Brand. Over the course of the last 3 months, we do have date pickers in here that will allow you to pick things like week, month, or a custom date range. Within here, we have the overarching numbers. So we have impressions delivery, and those impressions have been sent across podcasts, Spotify SAI, as well as YouTube. We do also track streaming audio as well. If those impressions were present, we would show them here. Within the next funnel here is visitors. So what this helps to answer is, of all of the marketing spend across all of my podcasts, Spotify, SAI, and YouTube, how many visitors did we drive to the website that have been exposed to those ads? And in this instance, it's about 487,000. You notice that there is a conversion percentage. So that's the number of visitors that were attributed to this campaign divided by the number of impressions that ran, or about 1.2%. And a cost per visitor. How much was it to actually get someone to go there? Very common metrics that most advertisers are looking at today to judge the effectiveness of their campaigns. Further down the funnel, we have things like signups. How many people went and, let's say, signed up for a lead form or some other lead activity or event that is important to you as an advertiser. And then conversions, which might be purchases. How many purchases or thank you for buying from us pages did these people reach that we can attribute back to this media? And again, you have a lot of similar metrics here. So you have conversion percentage. What percentage of impressions went on to convert, and how much did it cost in order to get people to convert? Again, very common metrics that advertisers are using today to judge the effectiveness of their media. And if we are receiving revenue data from an advertiser's website, we can calculate things like, what is the total revenue that's being driven by this campaign? What's the average order value? As well as what's the return on ad spend? And so this helps to showcase sort of, was a campaign or a channel successful, yes or no? Now that's half of an attribution vendor's job. The other half of an attribution vendor is to tell you what parts of the campaign worked and didn't work, so we can start to understand a bit more about how we should be adjusting our buy to drive more efficient and effective results over time. And a couple things that can help you do that. First of all, we can look at this graph. This graph is nice because it allows us to see. That's a little bit cluttered here. So let's just start with purchases and conversions, and let's see how well does it follow sort of the impressions line. And can we kind of see, let's say, a spike of impressions lead to a spike in conversions. We can kind of see a bit of a latent effect that when we have a spike of impressions, we do after that point in time see a bit of a spike in conversions. You kind of see the same thing happening here. Impressions, conversions, impressions, conversions. It does kind of look like there's some semblance of correlation with heightened impressions and more conversions. So that's good. If we sort of didn't see any reaction to a spike in impressions, perhaps we can start saying things aren't working, and we start diving deeper as to why that is. But this nice little graph here helps to start answering those questions. Again, we can go ahead and click on a longer time frame here if that's useful, and we can analyze that data looking at that other timeline. So interesting to note here, if we look at, let's say, visitors instead of conversions, or at least getting people to go to the website, it's very curious to kind of see here that, as an advertiser, I kind of have a trend line of impressions here. Maybe it's about right here, and my visitation is kind of staying at a similar level. But what I noticed, this spike seemed to drive this spike of impressions potentially. But also, when we saw a lot more impressions, I'm not sure that we saw significantly more visitors. So that's interesting to note. If we look at conversions, however, it seemed to drive more conversions. So although it may not have been getting more people to go to the website, it convinced more people to purchase. So you see here that we've got a sort of a trend of an uptick of impressions over this period of time. And look, we definitely see some increase in conversions over time as well. So great way to kind of use this data. Sometimes it's easier to look at, again, at the week. Very obvious correlation with an increase of impressions with an increase in conversion. So that's great. Now, let's talk a little bit about, well, I kind of want to trim the fat. I want to understand what's working, what's not working. I want to optimize out of the things that are not working, so on and so forth. And that's where we look at the relative performance table in the data cuts section, which is in the bottom half of the screen. So what we look for here is a couple of things. First of all, here's all the various fields that we are measuring or that we are calculating in the metrics that we're calculating today. I can adjust this within the columns to add and remove things that make sense and don't make sense. Let's say I don't necessarily want to look at ads. I don't want to look at SAI, streaming impressions, or YouTube. I want to look at podcasts. I also want to look at signups and sign-up percentages. I don't want to look at promos for right now because I've already looked at that data, let's say, for instance, so I'll remove that. And great, so now we have a really nice view of all these things. Now, it's very simple for me to see what's working best and what's not working very well. So let's look at conversion rates. The higher the conversion rate, the better. So if we have really high interesting that we only had a couple of impressions there, but we had 2 conversions associated with that. That's very interesting. Quite effective. Perhaps I should be looking at Colin Cowherd's podcast because of that. But also, too, we've got a normalized conversion rates here now. So if I look here, I start to see like, hey, Be Well with Kelly, very good. Ringer, mid-roll, very good at driving efficient and effective purchases to my website. So if my goal is to drive top line revenue, then I'll be looking at that. Hey, if my goal is to drive awareness or just general visitation, then I could start sorting things by visitor percentage and go from greatest to least. So again, I could start seeing what's the most efficient and effective at driving these things. So that's one way to look at it. Now, let's say I want to start optimizing because I have impression buys and I want to start looking at things like what geos are performing better. Well, if I click on the geo data cuts, I can now start seeing things. Let's look at the DMA region. I can start seeing things like what specific DMAs are performing best from a visitor percentage perspective or a conversion percentage perspective. Chattanooga, interestingly enough, about 100,000 impressions drove a very high visitor percentage and a decent number of conversions, right? So these Chattanooga area, Davenport, that's really great. What if I go least to greatest? I can start to see these particular DMAs are not converting at a very high level. I may negatively target these types of things. And so that will be really beneficial as I'm trying to optimize my media. And a few other ways that you can look at this, you can look at it by publisher level. So if you want to figure out if you want to start removing publishers or heavying up on other publishers based on what they're doing now, you can very simply and easily do that. You have all of these different ways to slice and dice this data to help inform your buy and inform your optimizations to drive better results for your client. We are the only attribution provider that provides this level of advanced measurement reporting that creates things that are as actionable as they possibly can be. So that is standard attribution. Now, let's say as an advertiser, I'm most keen to understand based on my own attribution requirements, my methodology requirements. 1, are we driving results based on my methodology requirements? And 2, are we driving incremental results? And that's where we start diving in on our settings here and we get into the attribution configuration tool. The attribution configuration tool allows me to do a lot of things right up front, and it's really useful. So first of all, attribution window. We do a different or separate attribution window by podcast and by streaming audio. So if you have different attribution windows, they're great. You can set those. If not, you can set them to be the same. But you'll notice as I start sliding these, let's say I actually want a 20-day attribution window, my results will change based on that. So very simple and very easy for me to take a look at that. Next, if I am very keen to understand how these attribution results look, but hey, most other channels I do last touch, well, I can change that attribution model and choose last touch if that is important to me. So I have an apples to apples comparison with my other channels. Otherwise, we believe things like multi-time decay, where you give more credit to the most recent impressions, less credit to the older impressions. Go ahead and click on that, and that will adjust and change the results as well. So all the results will change. And then the other thing that we'll call out here also is we have an option to sort of exclude some conversions from being considered for attribution. So first of all, do we only want to look at new customers, or do we only look at new visitors? Well, we can select these to exclude things like prior customers and prior visitors. Are there certain referrer URLs that we don't want to give credit to the podcast for? Things like Facebook, things like Google searches. You can go in here and exclude any one of these. And by default, we're being our thresholds are pretty high by default. We actually exclude Facebook, TikTok, and a few other sites to begin with, Twitter as well. And so if you want to continue to exclude those, you can. Otherwise, you can go ahead and include them. Are there specific UTM sources that we want to look at? Like Facebook might be another one of those we want to disclude. And as well as other landing pages that we want to not include. So all of these things can be removed from our analysis. So you'll see in here for this client, for this demo data, we have a text message activity that's coming through. We can actually remove those from the consideration if we think the text message campaign should get all of the credit for those conversions. So it's through this attribution configurator that will allow you to look at these results the way that you're used to looking at them across other channels. A lot of power stuffed within this little feature. And the final thing that I want to showcase here is incrementality. If you're a large brand and incrementality is important, then seeing incrementality is incredibly simple and incredibly easy. You can very simply click on this incrementality button. We go through and we build a control group. That control group is consisted of households that look like those that were exposed but weren't exposed. The attributes that we look at are the geography, specifically where are the impressions happening. We will find control impressions that are near physically those exposed impressions. And then we also look at past listening behavior. Are the podcasts, the genres of podcasts, the radio, the streaming radio station that they're listening to, if they're listening to similar things, then we consider that a good control candidate. And so once we build that control group, we will actually run that matching process multiple times. We'll run attribution on those control groups multiple times to create a solid baseline that we can now compare the exposed group results to. And now everywhere where you see the incremental icon is an incremental number. So you'll notice that we used to have about, that now from an incrementality perspective, we see about 443,000 attributed conversions are incremental. When I turned off incrementality, we saw around 865,000. So a subset of these visitors are indeed considered incremental, important numbers for larger advertisers. And you can also see too that we get very granular within here. So we can see the incremental numbers across the full funnel, all of the signups, all the conversions, the revenue, the cost per acquired customer, and the return on ad spend, but also within the placement level, we can start to see incremental visitors, visitor percentage, signups, all the way down the funnel. So incrementality is as easy as a single button click, and it will allow you to answer questions either for if you're an agency for your clients, or if you're an advertiser to your own leadership. Hey, we are seeing a lot of incremental or no incremental activity from this channel. It's very simple to see that. So that is analyzing data within Podscribe. It allows us to provide results and information and insights that allow our clients to get the most, maximize their effectiveness within the podcast and streaming audio space today. Thank you. Again, my name is Matt Dringler, the head of partnerships here at Podscribe. Appreciate you watching this. Reach out with questions, or if you'd like to start working with us, if you want to start using this tool to make your campaigns run better, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you.